How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. All right, guys. So we still don't know which prison PD will be sent to under the Bureau of Prisons. There he is right there. Looks a little down. But there have been requests from the lawyers for him to go to Fort Dixon, New Jersey. One, you got the RDAP program, but they're also pushing closer to family, etc. So if you look at the lawyers' angles, they're going to try every angle to manipulate housing. Now, a judge usually would not get involved in where an agency sentences an inmate. That's really not up to the judge. The judge can make recommendations, like I would like from the Be Near Drug program, but it doesn't mean he has to go to Fort Dix. Usually they leave that in the hands of the agency because there's a lot that have to be filtered when it comes to the placement of an inmate. And that really should be left in the hands of the agency because they're the ones that have to manage his safety and security. If a judge was to put that pressure and the agency maybe kicks back a little bit and says, I just don't think it's safe for them, but the judge orders it anyway, there could be a liability there. So again, that would be a nice little beef between the judge and the agency. But with that said, you could see that the lawyers, what's his name? Geragos, whatever, the lawyer for P. Diddy is pushing for his placement in Fort Dix, New Jersey. And there's a lot of reasons why. One, it's the time off. Two, it's an easy camp, etc. But they're not going to say it that way. They're not going to say, hey, P. Diddy needs to go here because he wants to work his time down, or P. Diddy wants to go here because it's easier time in a camp. No, they're going to push for reasons that force, or they think can try to force the agency to act. So he needs to go there for his own safety and security. You guys promote rehabilitation. So he needs to go there for rehabilitation. You know, he needs that drug program for rehabilitation. Or, hey, family is a big part of rehabilitation. So he needs to go there because he needs to be close to his family so they can get visits. So again, it's a very unique game that's being played. And sometimes they push, when they don't get what they want, they push for safety and security because that's where the foundation of all liability is, right? Is the inmate safely and secured at that facility. Now, granted, inmates that tend to manipulate moves, they tend to use a lot of generality. And you can see it here. Like, well, he committed a sex crime. And right now, we know how sex crimes are looked inside the prison. So we need him to be at the safest facility possible. So they'll push that liability. Or they'll say he's being threatened, but very general. You know, he's being threatened. And then the media runs with it. He's being threatened. Okay, but by who? When did it happen? Where did it happen? What was the threat? You know, how was he supposed to be threatened? Like, how was this supposed to be carried out? Whatever that threat is. Like, it's very non-specific. It's just not something that the agency can really run with. And then when you go back and try to interview the inmate and you say, hey, listen, you put out there that you're being threatened. I'm sorry, by who? By everyone? No, that's not good. Oh, because of your crime? No, that's really not good either. There's no specifics here. So you're just saying you're being threatened because you assume that you are going to be threatened or you are going to be hurt because of what you did. Well, we don't make moves based on assumption. Plus, the funny thing is, if you think you're being threatened based on what you have done, now you want to go to a camp where it's more open, where you have more interaction. That doesn't make any sense. You know, why would you say you're being threatened because of what you've done in general and then request for a camp that's more open? So obviously, when it comes to work in the correctional system, you always look at what the end game is. You know, because sometimes they'll tell you, I'm being threatened. That's why I can't go here. I have to go to Fort Dix. Well, or I need this and I need program and I have to go to Fort Dix to get the RDAP program. Once you start to know what the end game is, then you start to know if you are being played or not. So the lawyer has released the end game. P. Diddy wants to go to Fort Dix, wants to get into the drug program, all this stuff, wants to control where he's housed. And now comes all the effort to do that. And the BOP, they know that. It's been publicized by the lawyer. So now every request that P. Diddy makes is going to be filtered through what he ultimately wants. And every grievance he writes down is going to be filtered to what he ultimately wants, which he wants that RDAT program. He wants easy time, and he wants to get let out early. But again, I just wanted to put that out there because you're probably going to get a lot of generalized threats. But in the end, there's no specifics. In the end, it's all about him trying to control where he's going when he has lost the backing of the judge in that area. So the judge is like, I'm not sentencing you to Fort Dix. You want drug treatment programs? The BOP can figure out what works best for you. And now it's going to be all the other arguments to try to push his move. So I just wanted to put it out there because most likely this stuff is being said because he is trying to manipulate placement. So again, the best thing to do is to interview him, grab specifics. And then basically, you know, if there are specifics, work with it, do what you got to do. But the biggest conflict here is you say you're being threatened and you want to go to a camp that's more open. Come on. Come on. I mean, been here, done that. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. Stay safe.